Now we turn to our spotlight section, and I'm absolutely delighted that Chris and Kim from Mystic Access have joined us because they've just written a book on Android, and I know that we try and do a lot of audio stuff, but we have deafblind members of the community, and they always say, can we have some written materials? And we have people who aren't really audio learners, so it's fabulous that there's some up to date written material around. Before we dive into the book, though, Kim and Chris, welcome again. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about you guys and a little bit about Mystic Access and what you're about?
Sure. Thanks for having us, you guys. It's such a pleasure to be here. We love the podcast. Really been enjoying catching up on some episodes this morning, and it's just been lots of fun. So, Mystic Access, ironically enough, is a company that does audio documentation. So, the fact that we even got into writing books in the first place is kind of a fun thing. But audio it was initially our focus and our primary focus. In terms of Mystic Access, it still really is where we're primarily focused. We do audio on everything from Victor Reader streams from Humanware to Braille displays. We've done the Humanware Braille Note line of products, done all kinds of different things, Dolphin products from Dolphin Computer Access. So we've done lots of different audio, both with the companies, in collaboration with companies, and on our own for various products, such as the Amazon Alexa products, things like that. So we've kind of made a we're kind of troubadours in the case of a lot of the audio that we do because it's stuff that most people might not necessarily think would deserve or desire an audio um, tutorial or audio documentation. So we've done things like Braille displays that have had no audio components to them and yet have made successful audio documentation from them. And this all stemmed initially from Chris's podcast, which has been around for a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, it actually, the whole idea behind Mystic Access came from the old Braille and Speak, and I was able to learn that on my own with audio documentation that was read by Fred Gassoni years and years
Way
ago.
back in the day.
Yes. So that's how Mystic Access really became a thing because I was thinking, how do we get this working? How can we, you know, bring back audio? Back in the 90s, a lot of the AT companies did audio tutorials for their products, and then it just fell beyond the wayside. And we kind of understand why, because it's not an easy thing to do to edit it and to get it nicely packaged.
To make us
And
sound like we're confident and competent and know everything there is to know and look pretty effortless, and of course it's
Beautiful.
not effortless at all. So to make it seem that way can be a bit of a process there. So we love what we do. That's kind of our primary thing. Like you guys, we have a podcast and we enjoy talking about all kinds of assistive technology and mainstream technology too. We're both totally blind and we also got married last year, so that kind of fit into the podcast places.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Congratulations. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
Thank
that on
you.
your announcement list.
Yeah,
I didn't see
it's
that.
it was very
Yeah.
fun. It was kind of something. We didn't want to like bore people out of their minds by talking wedding, and all these things, but it actually did bring up some good topics because I moved 700 miles to a new state, and
Oh,
things come
wow.
out of those processes that can sometimes inform topics on podcasts. So we have a lot of fun. It's the Mystic Access podcast, and it comes out every other Tuesday. So if people want to check it out, they can.
Brilliant. I do miss my Braille and Speak Classic. I got it in 1989, so I suspect
I know I
we
miss mine too. It's
yeah.
hidden somewhere.
I suspect we were all weaned on the same
I
audio
suspect so.
tutors written
Yeah,
by
my
Olga
poor old
Espinosa.
640. Yes. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the one I listen to too.
yeah,
So
that's done.
here's what I've always wanted to ask, and I'm glad that you guys are here today. I've always wondered about the chosen name Mystic Access. And I'm thinking of mysticism, and I'm like, I want to ask them why or how they came about such a beautiful thing called Mystic Access. Who would tell us about the history or how you came about choosing Mystic Access?
Yeah, actually, that is a story that stems back into or begins in the early 90s when we had bulletin board systems for those people
Ooh.
that remember calling into a computer using a modem. And it was way, way before the internet. So I ran a BBS or bulletin board called the Castle of Dreams. And I thought, well, I could resurrect that name, but it kind of sounds like something that might be a little X-rated or so, shall we say. So you know, I wanted to keep it into the mysticism or magical aspect. So, sitting around, Kim and I were just talking about, what will we call this fledgling company that we didn't even know we were going to even be a part of? And so I came up with Mystic for the magical aspect, and then Access for the accessibility aspect of it. And then we came up with the tagline where the magic is in learning. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And I would sit on Mystic Access for about 2 years. I put a couple tutorials out, and then I asked Kim to join me and create a tutorial for the Victor Reader stream. And we launched that on I think it was May 15th of 2015. And it's been, a road ever since then. So
Some up, some down, some sideways, but it's definitely been a road and a
Yeah.
journey and tremendous fun. I mean, we have met so many people. We never dreamed that this would ultimately become our gig, and here we are. So it's a lot of fun.
And what's your guys' backstory, Chris? I know you were tech support at GW, weren't you? But GW Micro. But yeah, what can you tell us a bit about yourselves personally?
yeah, I started out working for an assistive technology center in Buffalo, New York. And then I would move on to Sendero Group. And then once I hit
Uh-huh.
Sendero Group, when I left them, that's when Mystic Access really became a thing. And while Mystic Access was growing or getting, its foot in the ground, I did work with GW Micro / AI Squared, VFO, Vispero, whatever it turned into. And then in 2016, I left the tech support with Vispero, and Kim and I have just been, pushing stuff out and making Mystic Access work.
I really like history, so I always like all that background stuff about how things got started. And I'm such a historian, besides the fact that I am the Android evangelist. It's also beautiful that I love history. So thank you so much. Now I know where that mysticism came from. Mystic Access. Guys, check them out. A beautiful place.
What about you, Kim? What's your backstory?
Ironically, I do not have an assistive technology background. I used some assistive technology, of course. My beautiful Braille and Speak 640 that I loved ever so much was kind of my real foray into becoming obsessive about my assistive tech. I've always been total, so I've always used assistive technology. So that was always something that was part of my life, but I never dreamed it would become part of my career. I was a life coach for many years prior to the Mystic Access foray. And this wasn't my thing. I was someone who I went to public school. I didn't have a lot of blind friends. I mean, I had a few, but I was like, I don't know if I can teach this stuff. I might feel like a bit of an imposter, trying to figure out how to teach this type of information. But I had done a lot of writing and a lot of teaching and things in my coaching work for several years prior to Mystic's creation. So ultimately, I kind of worked my way into it and learned how to teach from a technical perspective. And it was a huge learning curve, but it was tremendously fun. I'm always someone who's really enjoyed the interaction piece. I have a psychology background as well. So, between those things, I thought, between my coaching and my psych background, maybe I can actually add to this little journey in some way for Mystic Access and kind of know about the emotional hangups that people can experience when they're trying to learn their technology. So that is a big part of what we attempt to help with, and if not dispel, at least kind of turn it down a little bit so people don't feel completely stressed out when they're trying to use their tech or learn their tech. So that piece is important to me based on my background. I have a music degree as well, so I'm a musician and a singer, and it's just all stuff that I really enjoy, and I always wanted to write. So the fact that, now here we are talking about technology and books and technical writing is quite a thrill. So it's been a real journey for sure for me.
And that approach, I think, is particularly noticeable. I think I've got 2 or 3 of your tutorials, and the fact that you don't want to, you want to start at a, use a pun, accessible level without stressing people
Yeah.
out. Without wanting to say which approach is better. If you compare Mystic Access to something like Access Technology Institute, it's different, isn't it? Like you've got different
Yeah.
teaching styles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
That absolutely comes across. I think it's very clear that you've been able to adopt the approach you want to adopt.
Yeah, I think so. We always try to approach each of them starting with the foundational concepts and kind of working our way up. It makes sense to us. And of course, people have different teaching strategies, and that will work for other learners. And if they can get something from both, that's fantastic. Or if they want to pick what works for them, that's great. That's why we've got choice, and that's why we've got lots of options in the community, which is fantastic.
Completely. Let's move on to talk a little bit about the book then. So can you sort of introduce the book to us and tell us what you've sought to cover, who you think it's aimed at?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it is aimed at, for one thing, the person who is confused about Android and its accessibility in general. So you guys help a lot with that too, in terms of dispelling some of those questions that people may have. Like, well, I've heard that it's really complicated, or I've heard that it's really inaccessible, and I've heard this or that or the next thing about Android. And of course, those of us sitting in this room know that Android is a fantastic either alternative to or your main daily driver. And so that's how we wanted to approach the book, is as first saying, hey, this is accessible. This is an option for you. And this could potentially be the thing you use every day for your phone, for your news, for your weather, for all these daily tasks that we want to get done easily and efficiently. This is an option for you. This is something that could become your friend in the course of learning to use it. And we wanted people to know that it's every bit as powerful, and in many ways much more powerful, especially in terms of customization, than other competitors out there in the marketplace.
Especially Windows Phone. No, just a joke.
Yeah.
We won't take Windows Phone as a
Yeah,
serious
right,
competitor in the
right.
marketplace.
Come on, Ed, don't mess up with my Windows Phone.
I've got a Windows Phone too. I've got one running Windows Phone 8, some sort of piece of junk Nokia that
I didn't know you could still get Windows phones now.
Oh, you can't, I don't think, Amanda. No, I think
Yeah,
Oh,
I
right.
think they're
died.
done.
I think
I
it's
don't know if
died.
they'd even work
I
anymore.
was going to say, would
No,
they
it
work?
probably doesn't. Probably doesn't work. If it ever worked.
I have
Well,
an-
there's that.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay.
So what can you tell us a bit about the book and the structure and sort of what you cover? With it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we kind of start out by talking about the things you want to keep in mind before you even start. So there's that piece about accessibility that I was just speaking of. What can you do with it? Can you customize it? Oh, yes. I mean, that's one of the best pieces, my personal opinion about Android, how much customization you can do to it. But we also tell people that you don't have to. It's not something you have to do. You don't have to go in and do tons of customization. You can take it out of the box and begin using it successfully. But we talk about stock Android. We talk about things you need to know before you pick which brand of phone or tablet you want. We talk about the differences between the phones and tablets, obviously protecting your device, caring for it, things like that. So it really starts out at the person or with the person who is making that considered purchase and saying, is this something I even want, or why do I want it? So we kind of begin there, and then we dive into the setup process. We talk about various aspects of the phone and parts of the phone, the dock and navigation bar, and, all these different things. And I think one of the interesting things that we did in the course of the book, and Chris can speak to this, is that we used two different phones throughout the course of the book, because obviously we have differences between our Pixel phones, for instance, and in our case, Samsung.
Yes, I used a Samsung A32 and Kim used a Pixel 3A during the creation of the book. And this gives it different perspectives and different ways that the two phones, while they're running Android, are completely different, or may be completely different, depending on the type of launcher that's installed, how the settings are configured, and all of that stuff. So we didn't want to say Pixel, because if somebody is using something that's not a Pixel, you didn't want them to think that the step by step to go to this setting is going to be the same on their specific phone. So we made sure that that was very clear in the writing process.
Yeah, that was huge. It was a big deal to us to make sure people had options and realized that they didn't have to pick just one thing. So, in the course of the setup process and having these discussions, we talk about various ways to configure your phone, settings. We can't go into all of it, obviously, because it's only a 3-volume book. And for anyone interested in the geekery behind books, or at least books for National Braille Press, 3 volumes is 54,000 words. So that's kind of what you're looking at for a 3-volume book. So you only have so much space in which to cover your material. So that can make it a little difficult too, because when you're doing the outline process, you have to make sure that the major highlight points are hit hard and are discussed very thoroughly. So it's kind of one of those things where you get to a certain point, it's like, what can I cut? Because obviously there's so much to discuss. So we try to put in as much as we could, obviously stressing accessibility settings, launchers. We talked not tons about launchers, but we talked a bit about launchers and showing people what one launcher might look like as opposed to another, web browsing, email, calendars, editing text, selecting, all these various pieces that go into the editing process, formatting. We touched a bit on those. We talked a bit about Braille support, although we left quite a bit of that to people to do their own research, because obviously that's an issue, at least currently, that is having some, we're dealing with things like Braille TTY and Brailleback and some of these third-party things that people are having to use to get Braille support. So we didn't talk as much about that as I perhaps would have liked, especially because, this is a company that promotes Braille and Braille literature, Braille reading. So that would have been nice. But we did talk, I think, quite successfully about the main other focuses that you might want to utilize a phone for, doing your events, doing your internet browsing, checking your email, writing and editing documents, things like that. So there's a lot of different pieces there. And hopefully we hit enough highlights to get new people interested, but also for those people who are struggling with particular topics, perhaps already own Android devices or have their devices collecting dust on their shelves, to be willing to pull them out and follow along a bit with what we're doing and see if it's helpful. And of course we did Play Store, downloading third-party apps, discussions of things like that, so that people would have the ability to see just how diverse Android could be and how much they could customize, again, going back to the customization, the product to their specific wants, needs.
One thing I did want to mention, and we have to thank you guys for this. So when we were writing the book, we decided to get a Motorola phone. And to our horror and dismay, we found out you couldn't use the multi-finger
gestures.
And oops.
We had this beautiful little phone. We loved it. We thought it was great up until the point where we tried to use multi-finger gestures and went, no.
So we didn't use that phone. We ended up getting the A32 that I previously mentioned, and so that we could have 2 phones that are running those 3-finger gestures. But that was a complicated thing to try and explain to people. Yeah, you can do them on this phone with this version of Android, but you can't do it on this phone that has the same version of Android. So that was that was fun.
And that's in the very beginning sections of the phone, because you don't want someone to read 4 chapters and realize, oh, I bought this Moto phone and I can't use multi-finger gestures. So, there's all these pieces that you have to keep in mind as you're writing to try and make everything seamless and make sense and be organized, and yet make sure that your reader knows everything they need to know as they're getting ready to begin this process, or make sure they know what their phone that they currently own is already capable of doing. So we're always talking about the different ways to do things, for sure.
They would previously have worked on your Moto phone on Talkback 9.0, and then Google stole them off all the non-Google and Samsung. Like, it's a good job I wasn't on when Warren interviewed Brian Kemner, because I would have got sacked from this podcast. Like, seriously, for real.
Here's the problem, and it's interesting, and it's a very important point that you brought about, the Motorola phones, and great as they are, and I love Moto G phones, especially the G line. I mean, affordable phones. However, the downfall has to do with the fact that these things don't often see those updates, and therefore, initially, we were supposed to have that multi-finger support with any Android phone running Android 11. However, something happened down the line, and it got, reverted to where you have to have an Android device running Android 12. And frankly, I think we should have had it to where one could even use an Android 10, if you ask me. But I don't make the decisions, and unfortunately, that's what it is. So if anyone is looking for a phone that they want to enjoy, of course, nowadays we have to make sure that one gets one that is running at least Android 12 or has a surety that such a phone is going to be updated to Android 12. So you want to enjoy all the goodies that we have, especially as we're getting into new territories of Talkback. You want to make sure that your phone would be able to support Android 12 and support it very soon. Now, I know that writing books, Chris and Kim, writing books about Android is a monumental challenge. And I know you guys have explained some of the steps you had to go through and all of that. Were there any time, or was there any time that you found it like almost discouraging to write, or did you come across such a thing as saying, hey, we wish we didn't start writing this because it's so diverse in the Android land, or whatever of Android is so diverse? Did you run into any discouragements at all, or you are just good to go?
No, absolutely, we did. There were times when, and this is why it was so great that there were both of us there, because I'm the primary writer and he's the person who, when I have no brain cells left from long days, 12, 14-hour days, 16-hour days of writing, where I'll say, you just need to tell me what to say here, what the options are, or what I'm doing, and then I will make them look pretty, and write them down and make sure they're good to go. So I think the fact that there are two of us kind of doing Team Android, in the course of writing the book, that was really helpful, because when I was ready to just throw up my hands and say, "Oh, I can't do anymore," he would be there to encourage, or he would be out there to say, "Well, let's try this approach, or let's do this," or we had an outline to go by, because when you begin this process and you're ready to submit a book, or you're ready to submit the beginnings of your book, you always write a table of contents. That's one of the things you do as part of that process. And so you outline it first, and then the editor approves it, and then you can begin your writing process. So you're there with an outline. You have to have an outline kind of before you start, and that's for her benefit, and that's also for your benefit, so you don't completely lose your mind. So you've got some organization, a framework at least of organization prior to actually beginning the process. But like you said, Warren, you certainly get through some of these things, and as you're working through it, it just becomes, there's so much to say and there's so much to do, and you only have so much room to write, that it's like, what am I going to do here? How am I going to make this make sense? So yeah, absolutely. There were times, when you would just have to take a day off and not write anything because it was just too much, and you just had to sit there and breathe and regroup and do some completely different project. So it definitely takes a toll, especially with a 3-volume book. That's a pretty daunting process
That
to
is
begin
huge.
with. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a lot.
that's huge.
So, but it was great. I was quite pleased with the results and the feedback we've been getting, and I think that between all of these huge amount of topics that are covered, and anyone can go on the National Braille Press website and look at the table of contents there without purchasing, so you can kind of try before you buy, see what topics we cover. But there is a mammoth amount of material that is covered in 3 topics. So hopefully it's enough to address clearly and concisely what both beginners and people who already have Android and perhaps want a little more advanced knowledge would like to know. So whatever you're struggling with in terms of what you're learning, hopefully there's something there that you can kind of walk through the process with us, and we can get you at least on the path where you're ready to do your own exploration on your own. Because isn't that ultimately the point of the thing, is to get people curious and make them go, oh, okay, well, based on these steps, I can kind of get started and learn more, and then I'll find out more cool things on my own. So that part is really rewarding.
Let's talk about the pricing, because that's something that some people always think about.
Mhm.
What are we looking for here? I mean, in terms of price, so that people know when they go to purchase the book and things like that.
Sure, absolutely. It is. Let's pray my mic doesn't go out as I zoom back over to this website. Let's see, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. It is okay.
And let me just say, while she's
Yeah, go
getting
ahead.
she's getting the price, we write the book for National Braille Press. They are the ones that sell the book. It's their book. They own the copyright. We just write it, and a person would go to nbp.org and purchase the book from National Braille Press.
Okay, that
That's
makes all the difference.
fascinating,
Yeah,
actually, Chris.
I
Just
didn't know
again,
that.
while Chris is coming up with, while Kim's looking for the price. So what's the commissioning arrangement for that? Do you say, I've got an idea for Android? Do you want to give us some money for the IP and you own the copyright, or do they come to you going, we're a bit short on Android books, guys? Fancy writing one?
It's kind of the latter. They come to you and they say, we have this topic. Do you think you can do it? Do you want to do it? So you can either deny or accept the book, and you get paid per volume. So that's kind of how that works.
Yeah,
Which
they
is
pay you
nice.
a set price per volume of your work, and then they end up owning the copyright to it. So,
Yeah.
and of course, they accept ideas too. We wrote a book
Yes.
several years ago on the various delivery services like DoorDash, Grubhub, Postmates, some of those things, and we wrote it right before the
Yeah.
pandemic. So, that worked out really
Yeah.
well for
Ideal.
everybody.
Ideal timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I like-
and that was an idea that I threw out to Cassell, and she accepted. So, it's kind of a
Great.
mixture of both, but they come
'Cause
up with the pricing structure that the public pays too.
Sure, because it's good they've broken their glass ceiling, because they used to have a law, didn't they, that only people called Anna were allowed to write books about smartphones.
She's a personal friend of mine, so I will tell her that. No, she'll love
Maybe there are
that.
two. There's Anna Dresner who does the iPhone, and Anna Garza who did the
Yes.
Android
Yeah, Anna
one.
Garza
So
did
it's
the
like,
original. Yeah, did the original
that's right.
Android book. Yes.
Like only people called Anna are allowed to do it, apparently. But they've revised that
Yeah,
policy.
they've raised that bit, and now there are more of us who are in there. Quite a lot of us are women too. There's a large stable of women writers
Yeah.
for NDP now,
Well,
which
tell
is really
me,
cool.
you women are doing something that we guys are not doing, and that's absolutely beautiful, right? It goes to prove that women are more than capable, or sometimes better than us. Because I tell you, as the evangelist, I
Not that
can't
was
even write
patronising at all,
a
Warren. Just by the way, calling you out. Well done.
So I'm actually really delighted to see that we have a lot of women writers, and most especially in our field of blindness related things. I think it's an important thing, and it encourages the young ladies out there. Young ladies, if you're out there, make people like Kim, Anna, and all of them your mentors in this way, so you can get to write more and more books for us to read. I'm
That was
excited
so
about it.
Thank you. That was so intimidating to me when I first started in this industry too, and it was one of the things that kind of made me hesitate when Chris was like, "Hey, come do this audio with me for the Victor stream." And I'm like, "This is still such a man's world, what do I think?" I mean, I have no issue breaking glass ceilings, like none at all. I'm totally with that. But, it was still like, "Oh, how many women can I count, who are doing things similar to what I'm doing?" So it is, after 7 years of doing it, now I feel very confident in doing what I do. So yeah, it's true. The gals need to stand up and say, "Hey, pay attention to me. I have valuable things to say too." So it's fun to be in that club.
And the
Can
funny
anyone
thing,
buy the book? Can it, like in the world, or do you have to live in America to buy it?
No, I don't think so. I think anybody can go to
But
NBP.org.
can you get it like a digital version? to put on?
Absolutely.
Can.
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
alright
it
then.
comes in BRF, so you can get it in BRF. It also comes in Word. There's also a Daisy version. It's not up on the site yet, but there's a little note that says you can pre-order to get the Daisy version when it's
Oh,
available.
cool. I think I would probably get a BRF one and stick it on me Brilliant, because
There you go.
I've used it a few months, but it sounds like there'd be like loads of, because it's good to have like the audio things, but it'd be good to have like a written guide as well, kind of thing. So
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I love it so much, is because you've got kind of both worlds. You've got podcasts like this one that can help with the audio
Oh, yeah.
portion, and then you've got books that'll assist. And to answer the question, it's $26 to $28.50. So depending on what format you can get hard copy Braille. That probably is only available here in the States. But then you've got the downloadable Braille, and you've got Word, and again, this Daisy that doesn't appear to be here yet, but it seems to be coming. So depending on what kind of format you want, you've got options.
cool.
And is that text Daisy? Is it synthetic speech?
Nope, it's
Text.
text. It's text. Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda, we can get them here. I buy from MBP quite a lot, and it's kind of instant download. So once you've paid,
Oh
you get
right, I don't think I've never bought a thingy. If I don't think I've ever bought anything from them, so that's
from them. No,
that's
they're
good.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
there's
really
a
good.
lot of stuff. I mean, depending on what you're interested in, there's tons of different, not just technology guides either. There's all kinds of different things. There's
I might have
cookbooks
to have
and
a look.
all
Yeah.
sorts of things. Yeah. And then when you download them, they're sitting in your account. So you can always go back to your downloads page if you've lost something or misplaced it. You know, you can re-download it.
Cool.
The link will be in the show notes, but it's www.nbp. That's November Bravo Papa.org. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Cool.
there they are. And I should ask this. It's possibly a controversial question, but answer it honestly, and we promise to be gentle. What are you two guys' daily drivers in terms of phones?
We switch, actually. We play quite a lot in both worlds. Right now, I'm using my iPhone currently, but I'm thinking about switching back to my friendly little Pixel sitting over here on the desk very soon. And, every couple months, I'll be like, I think I'm going to switch out my SIM card, throw it in my other phone. So it
That's
really
the
just
beauty
kind of depends. Yeah.
That's the beauty of SIM cards. You can just pull out your SIM card, and now the other phone is now your daily driver phone. And if you're using your Google contacts and all that, and you're synchronizing across the two platforms, you don't even have to worry about, am I going to miss this contact by moving this SIM card to the other phone, because everything's all synchronized. So that's the beauty of having synchronization. And where were we way back when we didn't have synchronization and we had to use our Braille and Speak, go back to that, for the calendar, and if you
Yeah.
lost that, you were done.
2600 baud and 14.4K.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember actually on your Android Pie tutorial, you spent quite a lot of time talking about SIM cards, didn't you? And I sort of forgot. You don't really think of them. You sort of put them in your phone, and the beauty of them being able to take them in and out and swap them in and out, and what they do and what they don't do.
Yeah, that's what makes it so cool. And because of what we do, we talk about all these different technologies, whether it be Windows or Android or iOS and things. So it really pays. We have to stay on our toes and keep our foot in all these various worlds, as it were. So it's really helpful that we can do that and just take it out anytime we want and change things up and be able to use all these different things, be relatively conversant in all of them. So, but I do love my Android because of the customization. Chris will tell you I drive him crazy because I will customize everything. And sometimes I'll start customizing before I know exactly what I'm doing. So I can break stuff relatively easily sometimes without thinking too hard about it. So then I'm like, help, it's speaking Chinese. I don't know what I did. But, it's cool because then I can work my way back out of it, sometimes with some help from my patient spouse. But, it's a lot of fun. And the fact that you can do so much with it and change things up, even from your contacts and your phones. And we talk a lot about that in the book too, changing your dialers and, different ways to view your contacts. I mean, you don't have to stick with just one way. You've got all these various things that you can do, whether it be changing a launcher or getting an app or whatever that is. And I think that's one of the things that makes Android so
Oh
terrific.
yeah, I've had fun changing the launchers. Like I've done that a few times, but I've settled on one that I like at the minute, or I haven't changed it because I tried a few and then something annoyed us about a couple of them, and I can't remember what now. So but the one I like at the minute.
I have always said that, Android customization or the way to do things in Android is so much like Windows. If you're familiar with Windows, there's not just one way of doing one thing. You may have two or three or even four different ways of doing a particular single item. So I really like that about Android, and that's why I so much love the platform. That ability to do things in a different way. If you feel this other way is not cutting it for you, then do it the other way.
I agree 100%. Sometimes if I've forgotten one of those multi-finger gestures, I'm like, oh, what was the old way of doing this? Oh, yeah, okay. You've got all these different options and they all work. So you've got different ways, as you say.
And Chris, what's your daily driver? I don't think you've answered.
Yeah, I do switch. I went from, as far as Android, the A32 is no more. I sold it and I got an A52. And I did that because I bought
the thing on your wrist.
Yes. I bought the Samsung Classic Samsung Classic 4 watch. And
Ah,
the A32 that I found on eBay was an international thing. And for whatever reason, it did not like the watch.
ah.
Like, for example, if I cleared the notifications, they'd come back. And it was the weirdest thing. So I ditched that phone. I got a 52 and it's been working just fine. The watch and the phone love each other. So
We actually appreciate you for what you guys have done. And you have been very honest about this book and giving us all the information we need. And most especially to our listeners, if you're listening and you want to immerse yourself in such a book, please, we ask you that you go to that website, which is going to be in our show notes, nbp.org, right? Nationalbraillepress.org.
Um,
And there you can find that book. Now, Chris and Kim, do you have any final comments to say before we move on?
yeah, I just wanted to mention too, not only did we write the book on Android, we created the audio documentation for Android. So we actually have an acquainting yourself with Android audio documentation that's on our website as well.
Oh yeah, I got that. It was that was pretty helpful, along with the podcast from the Blind Android podcast as well. So I've because I wanted to get as much as I could.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah. So, if anyone wants to check out that or any of the other goodies that we're doing, you're welcome to visit us anytime. And we've got, as we said, the podcast, we've got tons of downloads that are free. So there's lots of ways to introduce yourselves to us without paying a dime, which is great. We want that because we want you to be able to learn who we are. And you can visit us at mysticaccess.com, mysticaccess.com. Everything available for digital download. So anyone all across the world and in general should be able to download that and utilize it. And of course, if you have any questions prior to making a purchase, or you just want to say hi or what have you, you can contact us via email, or if you're in the States, you're welcome to give us a call. We're in New York on Eastern time, and there's a lot available on the site to check out and learn about. And we, of course, would love to have you come visit and check us out.
Thanks very much. And I think you're going to stay with us for the rest of the podcast, which
Love
is great.
to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I do want to give you guys a little grief. How come it is that you guys didn't invite the podcast crew of the blind Android users to come attend your wedding?
Oh,
I've kind
see,
of
we
been
didn't invite
holding
you
it
guys
back, and I wanted to
then.
kind of, give you a little bit of a grief when we're done
Oh.
with the book.
Well, see, you can come. Well, today's our 10-month anniversary as we're sitting here recording this. So
Oh,
we're
beautiful, exciting. So maybe we could go for a 1-year anniversary or
totally.
whatever.
We can have a
Yeah,
big
but
party.
definitely you got to let the crew come in.
I think there's possibly a minor anachronism and they didn't know we existed. But
Yeah, I don't
Oh, yeah.
think you guys existed at the
That's
time.
aside.
Or we would have loved that.
Exactly.
We did have a large streaming component to our wedding, actually. We had more people
Yeah.
attend via the stream than attended in person. So that was kind of cool.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that is good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations again,
Thank
guys.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much.